thank you, first and foremost. Thank you, Kim. Thank you, the gang, the host team. Thank you to everybody, actually, who spent time with, talking to, listening to. And it's all your fault that actually, when I got home last night, I had to kind of rethink everything for today because I had so much stuff going on in my head. So, but thank you very much for that. Yes, I am at a place called the Eden Project. And when it was being, I mean, for the people who are UK-based, I think people know about the Eden Project. But it was quite clear when I was talking yesterday that there was a whole bunch of people who had never heard of it. And you know, so we've got a lot of work to do. But just to talk about it very briefly, when you go on your phones and you put in Eden Project, you'll see big greenhouses. But just to be clear, I thought, right, I will look, because I gave so many renditions of it yesterday explaining. I thought, right, okay, I'll go on my own website and see what we actually say. And do you know what we say? We say, we demonstrate and inspire positive action for the planet. As a growing movement of global citizens, we reconnect people with nature, we demonstrate and communicate positive change and inspire advocates of action. Earth provides us with fresh air, clean water, rich biodiversity, and a stable climate. We believe that the planetary emergency issues are all symptoms of the same problem. We have broken our relationship with the natural world. That's why, as at Eden, are working with, for, and as a part of nature to repair this relationship by demonstrating and inspiring positive action for the planet. The future remains ours to make. I'll talk about that a bit in a minute. Healthy people, healthy planet. Those two things are absolutely inextricably linked. What you wouldn't know, and when you would go onto the website and find out, that actually the Eden Project started life, we're 25 years young next year. And in where I come from, in Cornwall, a rich heritage of mining and clay pits. And one of these clay pits, and if you go over Cornwall as a drone, the whole landscape is scarred of industrial time gone by. And Eden, at the turn of the last millennium, the idea was to see if you could transform that clay pit and put the biggest greenhouse in the world at the time, put it and plonk it right in the middle of that clay pit and fill it with all plants around the world, and millions of people will come and visit it. And sure enough, 24 years later, we've had somewhere around about 22 million people who've come through those doors, and some people I know that in this audience have been there. And the point of that is that we've used those plants in there as a canvas on which to be able to tell stories about our dependence on the natural world. And that's basically what that whole thing is. And it's around that whole interconnectedness and why we talk about healthy people, healthy planet. They are inextricably linked. You cannot separate them out. So when you do something of harm to the planet, you are actually hurting yourself at some point. The problem with that is that not necessarily the people who actually are doing the harm are the people who have the immediate thing. So if you do harm as far as the climate is concerned, if you happen to be in the Maldives and you've done nothing, and all of a sudden the sea levels come up, your home disappears. Yes? So there's an equity issue in all of those things. The one thing that I love working at the place is that it's an attitude, it's got a swagger about it, which is basically the fact that it is possible, is that the Eden itself is a symbol of regeneration and what people can do when you come together in one place. So when you think about the 4 Ps of belonging, it has it all wrapped up in kind of one location. And it's about hope, it's about optimism. We do stuff and we try and do it as best we possibly can. That's where this comes from. And that optimism is something that we all need. I think 24 years on, I would say, and I'll just explain a bit about, I think that the future remains ours to make is, you know, in brackets, just, yeah? I mean, we made that statement kind of 25 years ago, and it's getting tougher. My issue around being here is that I couldn't think about, when I think about this audience, you have it all kind of sorted, and I wondered how on earth I can bring something which adds value to this. Yeah, when I think about it, you know, the belonging, how this has kind of come on in the 4 symposiums since, the 4 Ps, the charter, the narratives that some people were talking about yesterday and are detailed in books, Kim's books and other books. There's fantastic things happening around the world where the belonging is actually stemmed right down into roots. And I just go, what can I do about this? We know about issues to do with the trees and the roots. They all talk to each other. A whole host of stuff known. So actually, I go, why am I here then? And when I was on Sunday night and I was getting on a train to travel up to London to come, my daughter actually asked me the same question. She said, what, so you're going to go over and you're going to go to Canada and there's 200 people all gathering around the world and you're going to do this and you're going to talk for 15 minutes? Really? Discuss. And why don't you do that on Zoom? Why don't you do that on Teams? And you go, and therein hangs an issue of perhaps a young person, but Mike, who I at the back end haven't spoken yet, but Mike at the back end of last night when talking about humanity, got it absolutely right in the fact that we can be connected in a nanosecond, but actually what we've lost is actually the makings of humanity where we kind of do this and we touch and things. And that was absolutely apparent to me on the first night here, trying to dance and all of that stuff, and every conversation. So that was one thing. And then reflecting on the thing around belonging, and again, when Kim talks about in her book, and obviously her deep relationship with her dad, I was thinking about my dad, who would have been 103 or something at the weekend. And he was Polish and came over during the war. And I just was thinking about his kind of what was going on in his sense of belonging, because he wanted to banish everything in the past so that he set up his belonging in the UK, right, to the point that before he married my mum, he changed his name. I should have been Wojciech. I like it a lot better, actually, but, so I am first generation Stewart in that. But one thing I learned from my dad was that because he wanted to put his roots down in the UK, his whole thing of language was that he was just passionate about the English language. And almost to the point when Star Trek was on and it would say, to boldly go where no one has gone before, my dad would say, no, that's a split imperative. It's got to be to go boldly. And I go, no, shut up, it's fine. But one word that he really got me was the word vital, right? And it used to drive him nuts when, like in sports commentators, if West Ham don't get this goal in the next, 10 seconds or 10 minutes, it's of vital importance or else they're going to go down, yeah? Being a West Ham supporter, it is not a problem. They're going to go down, yeah? No one's going to die, yeah? Now, if I play that to what my daughter said to me on Sunday night, the reason for being here, the reason for the whole of the essence of the Belonging Forum is that it is vital. That is absolutely, and when I think about my dad now, and I go, oh my God, this is the moment in there. So it all stems in the fact that there's still a whole host of good things happening. So why is it that when I go home and I turn the telly on and I go, oh, what is happening to the world? Why have we got all this negativity? Why is it when we're all at one together? Why is that? And I'm just going to tell you something which is just a bonkers story, but it may not work, but there you go. So, a few years back, an illusionist who you may know called Darren Brown. I have not seen him for a long while, but I saw him on a television program. And what he did was he did an experiment in Hamley's toy shop in Regent Street in London. Those who don't know Hamley's, 100 years old toy shop, 5 floors in Regent Street. Actually, that ram full of toys. The shop is shut. Darren Brown brings in 2 people, and he basically says, right, I want you to come back. I want you to go, and both of you, I want you to agree on one toy, and I want you to bring it back to me. Yeah? And he turns around and he writes on this piece of paper the toy, and he puts it in an envelope. And then he said, the conditions are you're going to have a limited time to be able to do this, minutes. And he said, the other thing you have to do is that you have to put 1 foot on every single floor, of which there are 5. So you've got to have it's like a race against time. So off they go, out they go, every single floor, blah, 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 blah. Come down to the ground floor, and they're going through into the back. And I'm pretty sure Hamleys is the same as when I went as a kid. And the back, there are soft toys. And the 2 people were fighting on which toy to get. And they go, and they go, right, giraffe. Right, and they go, right. So they go up to Darren Brown and they say, giraffe. Sure enough, he gets out the envelope. Ba-ba, no surprise, giraffe. Yeah? So the super cynics around us would say, I wonder how many takes it took to get that. But when you played it back and they played that in slow motion, they'd shut the store, and everywhere that those people touched places, there was imagery to do with giraffes. So when you went up the escalators and the long neck, the whole essence of the pattern was there. So it was logging in here. Why am I telling you that? Because of all of the goodness that is happening within this room and all of those projects, the why I feel like I feel, and we talked a bit about it yesterday in terms of 50% of Google in AI, politics, comms, is the fact that we are being like this going through. And so therefore the challenge for us to be able to ground this stuff is really, really hard. Yeah? But it's not lost in a way. We just need to find a way to be able to do that. An idea, and just to illustrate it, we came up with a program, some of you will know, at Eden back in 2009 called The Big Lunch. And that program just started as an idea which was, imagine if you could stop the whole of the country just for 4 hours and invite people to sit down and have lunch with their neighbors. Don't give them a reason, just say, why don't you do this? You know, break bread, your whole commonality is where you live. That's where the essence, and that's why I was very, very excited when I was listening to Fred yesterday about the work he was doing in the States in neighborhoods. And anyway, we did this, and just as a bit of a backdrop about my family and thinking how hard it was, I was going around in 2008 with an art bag in London trying to get people to buy it, to buy the idea so we can get a team to run it. And my wife, Jane, South London girl, I'd been working at Eden for some time, and I came home and she said, do you know, she said, you work at the Eden Project, yeah? And which is only like 30 minutes up the road, and you seem to be spending about 2 days a week in London. Discuss, yeah? As if I've got some kind of other life going on, God forbid, you know. And I just went, no, it's fine. I said, we've got the makings of this idea, and this time next year we're going to close this road outside and we're going to be able to sit down and have lunch with our neighbours. And I wouldn't use the language she used, but in essence she said, why the pork and hell would I want to do that? She said, much as I like my neighbours, I want to sit down with my friends. That's what I want to do. So I went, oh, this is going to be interesting, yeah? And it is quite something that even a local vicar I spoke to, he said, oh, this is great, Peter. He said, I'll invite my congregation and we'll all sit out on the lawn on the vicarage. And you go, no. What you need is the people all around who do not come to your church. That's what you want, right? So the commonality, the angst in there. Anyway, long story short, we did it. And first year, it did something like 400,000 people. And I was disappointed because I wanted 6 million. But I was like, hey, okay, again, no one died and it was really good. But what we did is that when you looked at it and you thought about it in terms of numbers of football stadiums, that's a lot of people all sitting down at one time. And then on the basis of that, we then went to the lottery and said, we asked the people what they thought. And this was not the normal people within society who were the backbone of civil society, the brown owls and the scouts and all of the neighborhood watch people. This was just mums outside of the school gates, just going into a space, never done volunteering before, but going into a space in a different way. And the things that they said, going back to our wonderful team here in terms of measurement, was that I don't live in a house anymore. I live in an environment where I know people. The streets, we've reclaimed the streets. I feel safer, I feel happier, and importantly, in the element of starting to talk about loneliness, those things started to move. So we went into the lottery and we said, here we go. And in 20 minutes, they just said, this is very interesting. What would you do with £1 million? And we said, well, we'd obviously spend that very effectively, thank you. And really, really good. And they just went, right, okay. And I said, but what you can do is that you can possibly be, this is pre-COVID, that you, the lottery, can be the best invisible virus that you've ever seen, that we could spread this. And that's what we did. Whole host of things since 2009. But in June of this year, 10 million people participated, all on one weekend, in about 120,000 events in that. When you think that the whole population of the UK is something like 60-something million, it ain't bad. I don't think people knew that they were actually attending something. But the beauty is when you do the research, as our friends were here, it's working, yeah? Now, I'm not saying that the big lunch should be the thing that everybody does across the planet, although I think having listened to Sharon on Tuesday night in Toronto, I was going, do you know, we should try that here. But anyway, but there are a whole host of other projects. The beauty about this, and this is about the invisible, and this is about being an invisible bridge to belonging, is that it is creating an invisible web for which provides resilience in the whole conversation about belonging. It's not the only thing. There are other things. So, for example, I was very taken in Kim's book around the wonderful community of longevity in Japan, where the lady of 102 years old, you know, I mean, Ogami, is it Ogimi? Ogimi village, yeah? I mean, you know, that is an invisible web which no AI or social media is going to penetrate. It is deep-rooted, it is real. And that is what the big lunch is designed to be able to do. And we need more of them. You'll hear William Byrd tomorrow talking about the streets. You heard David yesterday about the welcome idea, warm welcomes. These are all ideas, but we need more of them. My angst, it was said in the panel yesterday morning, was that, I think it was Carolina, who basically talked about the decade that we're supposed to be at this change, and we're halfway through this decade. I think the opportunity for the Belonging Forum, when you think about what success looks like in, say, 2 symposiums, we have to move at an incredible rate, frightening rate. For all of the conversations I had about Derren Brown, you may think that's a bit trivial, but it's not. The illusions out there are real. And we need to be able to find some really grounded ideas which actually start to make that absolutely real. And I think I read a quote. God, who was it? I get these quotes once a week, a Monday quote. And I think if you believe you're 50% there, Roosevelt, I think, that is the essence of kind of what we want to do. So it's scary, but I think there's an invisible bridge that can be crossed. 5 minutes over. I'm really sorry.